Joe Orth and I are starting a podcast. What should we call it?
Hey, don't pick on me. You know why? Because this is why. Let's see what he says.
The Joe Show?
Give Joe the business?
That's right.
Cup of Joe.
Cup of Joe.
What is happening here?
Would you listen?
We'll give you a chance.
Thank you. That's Joe.
That's Rooster.
And this is the Together We Shall podcast, episode 15. Like that, 15. It's not an even number, but it feels like an even number. And then when you hold your hand up, it looks like you're saying 6. And then I'm like, I'll get all messed up. But anyway, I'm weird that way. But what is happening?
Dude, it's funny because as you said 15, I was like, all right. But then I was like, but is that 15 or is that 6? And then what do I do like for 16?
Oh, it gets weird. Look at some of those old Spotlight Saturday episodes where I'm trying to figure out. And when you get to like 116, how do you do that? Like, yeah. And just hold a sign up. Yeah, perfect. That's hilarious, man. Hey, I got something I want to ask you. Rather than ask you like where you've been and what you've been up to and what's the latest, how about this? Let's try it. What is something that you learned since the last time we recorded? Some life hack that you didn't know that now you know.
Not really a life hack, but something fun. And also, I know you asked not what I've been up to, but driving in a Ragnar van without going to a Ragnar isn't fun.
That's fair. That's totally fair. Just for everybody that's listening, a Ragnar van is actually not something you can go to a dealership and buy. It's really an F-350 Transit or a Sprinter by Mercedes. But so you had to go somewhere far in a van. I don't even know if I want to ask where you went. You're shaving though.
I am shaving. My duties as a United States Marine Corps reservist, and part of those duties was some transportation in a van. And I haven't been in one of those since probably the last Ragnar we did, which I don't even know how long ago that was. But there was no like the intro. Some of those moments like are from a Ragnar and reminded me of Ragnar. And I didn't have that fun, like zero fun without being at a Ragnar.
Yeah, the intro to the podcast, you're talking about all the banter. Some of those things are hilarious. Like you reaching for, was it a Subway sandwich?
Yeah.
You're like, don't pick on me or something.
First time we did a Ragnar, we had like the standard Ragnar van, as we call it, in air quotes for those that aren't watching. And then we got like a high roof one day, and like our world's changed forever. To the point where it's like, we're not going to a Ragnar unless we have a high roof van. I'm not doing it. Because it has above the driver and passenger seat, which is typically, our spots, like a cubby. Like, yeah. I don't know. And sometimes you had to store Subway sandwiches in there. And like people were making fun of you and you just pull that thing out. Like, that's fine. Dude. I got a Subway sandwich up here.
Well, the issue is you don't store a Subway sandwich at room or hotter temperature in a cubby hole in the like you had cheese and stuff on there, and it's just like, and you're like, don't pick on me. And in the end, we didn't because we all envied you because you had the Subway sandwich.
You never miss an opportunity for lunch or dinner, whatever it was, and we went into that Subway, and like I was the next to run. I was like, I can't eat this and then go run, so I'll put it in my cubby. And I'll get it in a little bit.
That is a really cool like thing that you didn't know last time that you know this time, is that Ragnar van riding isn't fun unless you're going to Ragnar, which the last time I went to Ragnar was November of 19. And that was freezing. And okay. So what's something that I learned that I didn't know? And you might laugh at me because you'd be like, oh my gosh, you didn't know that. But Lucille Ball, her husband's name is Desi, and they were in a show together called I Love Lucy. And everybody who's listening is like, where are you going with this? We all know that. But what I didn't know is that Desi was really her husband, like in real life. And so not only in real life, but in the show, like they were married. And the other thing I didn't know is Desi had like a huge production, like he had a whole thing going on. This is a big businessman in Hollywood. And Lucille basically was like, I'll come on and do this show, but only if Desi can be my husband in the show. And they're like, okay. So he came in and they did the show. And then after the show, like Desi Productions or whatever continued to go on and do like huge things. And I never knew really that they were married on the show and in real life. And it got me thinking about that thing Leanne always says. In real life, or what'd she say? In real life or in the movies?
Real life or in the movie, or like the actor. Or,
Yeah. So she's always trying. She's always like trying to get clarity. Sometimes, like if we're like, "Hey, did you see blah blah blah?" and she's like, "Wait, like was that in real life or in the movie?"
yeah, like is Rip Wheeler really Rip Wheeler? It gets
Yellowstone.
to the point where like I don't even like it confuses me at times.
Yeah,
That,
it
like,
totally does.
But my question here is like what rabbit hole or like what like Wikipedia article that were you reading like that you were reading about like because that's how Wikipedia is like you can be reading about pancakes and then like 5 clicks you're on Desi Ball Productions or whatever it is like
Yeah.
how did you get there?
Lori was listening to a podcast because she was all caught up on ours, unlike our current guest, and she was able to. See what I just did there? That was funny. It doesn't really matter. Lori was listening to a podcast, but we have a guest today, Joe, and we should really just get to that. I wish I knew. I think Lori knew what the name of the podcast was, but she's not within shouting distance. But Michelle Smith's on TV today. TV. I went from the show to this is now TV. Michelle Smith's on TV. And
she's not within shouting distance either, but yet she is.
Yes, she is. I don't know. Like, I don't even know how to introduce her. Like, anybody who's listening to this knows Michelle Smith. And Michelle Smith's like, no, that's not true. Nobody knows who I am. Because she's really humble about it, and y'all are going to see. But our goal is to try to pull out all the fabulous stories that Michelle has. And if you recognize the name and the voice in a second, it's because she was on episode 5 of the podcast, along with a whole bunch of rowdy folks down there in Jacksonville when we were Run With Your Heart. But, without further ado, Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello, hello. Good to see you guys.
Likewise, the question we start off with is, where are you? Who are you? And like maybe there's something you want to share with the group that is of value or that you've learned recently, kind of like my story about Lucille Ball's husband in real life and in the movies.
Well, I am in Jacksonville, North Carolina. I am a local ambassador with Ainsley's Angels, so with our Eastern Carolina location, and I help support other ambassadors within Ainsley's Angels as a senior director. And I'm a mom, and I'm a wife, I'm all that good stuff. I did learn something, though. I learned yesterday that Boston Terriers have one of the highest chances of going into anaphylactic shock if they get stung or bit by things like fire ants or wasps. So I spent a chunk of my time yesterday in an emergency vet with my puppy when he went into shock after getting bit by fire ants. So I learned that. I didn't know that before yesterday. So.
Do you have any idea why the Boston Terrier is more susceptible to shock than my Labradoodle or Joe's Golden Doodle?
I think the vet mentioned something about their little flat face and their airway is like smaller. And so then if they get a response and have that allergic reaction, it can be more severe quicker than other dogs.
I would have said something like completely uneducated, like it's because they're closer to the ground and the ants can get them.
Well, it did help because my dog's been wearing a cone on his neck 24/7 for the past few weeks after a botched nose job surgery. And so when he stuck his face at the root of a tree to sniff something, the ants were able to rush up it very quickly. And it was really, it's funny now.
I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing at, was it Frank, right? What's his name?
Frank. Yes, his name is Frank.
I'm not laughing at the poor circumstances that Frank has been a part of over the last week, but I'm laughing at the unfortunate happenings of poor Frank over the last.
It's been bad. And the worst part is we're already on the vet's bad side because he botched his little nasal surgery because he ripped out stitches when he shouldn't have. So we're already kind of on our bad side, and we were doing everything right. And then I had to take him to the emergency vet because he really did. He almost passed out. It was really kind of scary. But when I got there, the vet was telling me how they'll send over all the records to our vet. So they're aware of everything that's happened. So I'm real excited about that because now she's going to think I'm even a worse dog mom than she already does. But he's okay now, so.
Well, we're really happy to hear that he's okay because you've really become pretty fond of Frank. Like,
Yeah,
that's your new little buddy, Michelle. I'm enjoying watching this relationship grow.
it is. It is. It was my daughter is 17 and kind of at a stage where she's not, I know it's crazy, where she doesn't need us anymore like she used to. So my husband and I would find ourselves like just wandering around Target, and Home Goods, and all these places because she's either at school or work. And we just realized we needed something more to do with our time at home, So we were like, we'll get a dog and that'll be great. It has been, but that's, it's been a long time since we had a little one in the household. So
What's crazy to me about that like story is you talking about Paige being 17, and then so that means like I met Paige at like 7. Over the episodes, we've talked about relationships, seeing the likes of like Paige and Camden and Briley, like 17. That's crazy. I don't know where the last decade went. I don't understand.
I'm trying to think of how old Paige would have been when I first met Rooster and his family in Ainsley. She's little.
I mean, that's kind of like a good way to jump into some of the stuff I wanted to talk about today. I mean, if memory serves me right, we were living in Jacksonville, North Carolina when we received Ainsley's diagnosis. But even before her diagnosis, I believe that how old did Ainsley have to be in your classroom? What's the law?
So she had to be 3. And so we met, I got to meet Lori and Ainsley a little bit before her 3rd birthday because that's when we kind of had meetings and different things to determine that she could, that she would be coming into preschool. So it was shortly before her 3rd birthday, right around that timeline is when.
Yeah. So to put the calendar on that, Ainsley was born in December of 2003. So shortly before her 3rd birthday would have been the fall of 2006, which would also be the first time you and Lori met. And I don't think I was there the first time because I was working or deployed or something. When I finally did talk to her, she was excited because of the level of like interest, like legitimate care for Ainsley. Because prior to that, people did like care, but like it was a doctor or it was a person that had to give an opinion. But in this case, like y'all were coming in there to do, what is that called? Early start or kickoff or what is it called?
Yeah, well,
Like,
just preschool, but kind of probably like early intervention services. But yeah, but just being preschool teachers, we do home visits as part of that. And so before a little one starts in the class, we'll go out to the family's home. And it would have been myself and probably Miss Katie, who was one of our teaching assistants. And so we'll go out to the home, get to meet, children, family, like where they're most comfortable and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just wild to think about that because you and Katie come to the house, meet Lori, meet Ainsley, and then we fast forward the clock over 15 years later. And we're here now, and so much has happened during that 15 years. And I want to talk about some of your more fun or fondest or happiest moments and neat things along the way. I think that's kind of what I want to talk about with this episode. But I also think before we can get to that, can you paint a picture for Joe and I about like what drew you to become a preschool teacher, specifically one who focuses with folks with different abilities? I mean, you went to ECU. You're, the daughter of a Marine. You grew up in Jacksonville. You met your husband at some point along the way. Give us like just enough to get us to the point where you're working in the early intervention / preschool space in Jacksonville in 2006.
In a nutshell, I was one of the little girls that just always wanted to be a teacher. Way back when you didn't really have a lot of different things people would share with you. I had a great teacher growing up. When I lived out in Arizona, so I was a military kid, so I traveled around a lot. Lived in Arizona before I came here, and I had this great teacher, and from that point on, I was going to be a teacher. And so that's what I did. I went off to ECU in Greenville to become an elementary education teacher, just like my teacher. And so I started to do that, and as I started to do the coursework where you go into classrooms, I realized that I really wasn't enjoying elementary education. Like, I don't know, I just didn't, it wasn't my cup of tea. I really wasn't sure what it was. the summer between my sophomore and junior year of college, I came home and I volunteered at a summer camp that was designed for children of all ages that had disabilities, different needs. And so I just volunteered there. And it was just the coolest, most fun experience I had. I didn't even know that special education was a thing, like its own thing. Because again, show my age, but back when I was younger in school, you didn't see children with different abilities, in your hallways and whatnot. So I never really knew it was a thing. My sister worked in the field as well with children that were like birth to 3 years old, but I didn't really have a lot of experience. And so I had the people that ran the camp and somebody else that worked there talk to me, and they were like, well, no, you can switch and you can do special education if this is something you want to do. So I went back to school that fall and met with my advisor, switched majors, and went into special education and just loved it. It's just sometimes you're just called to something. I don't really have anything. It just felt right. It was a good fit. I had great experiences while becoming a teacher, classrooms I got to work in. I think really just helped prepare me, and it just felt right. It was just the right place for me. And so, yeah, that's how I ended up there. When I applied for my job, I came back to Jacksonville to teach because I had some friends whose parents worked in the school system. So they were telling me, oh, yeah, there's all kinds of special education openings. You can definitely easily get a job. And then when I applied, as luck would have it, I had two choices from one particular school. I could either take the high school level class that was going to be focusing on children with really intense needs, or they were going to start a brand new preschool class for the very first time. And I could be the one to start that out. And I had always worked with younger kids. And so I was like, well, I'll take that. And that was kind of my interview. So that got me into that. And I had some great people along the way that shaped me into being a teacher that, was successful and just had some really good times with some great kids.
Now you're in a different position at the school, and I can only imagine that happened because you were a successful educator and because you were then sought after to be more of a leader, if you will. Can you spell out what you're currently doing?
Yeah, well, now I get to work and do the same thing that kind of had me being the teacher of Ainsley and other kiddos. So when children and families are turning 3 or their families have concerns for development between the ages of 3 to 5, there's a process that families can seek out to have evaluations completed and to see if their children have needs that might need support through special education types of services. So I now am on that side of the fence. So, I work year round, and I get to help be that very first step for families as they're navigating a lot of unknown territory. And again, it's just something that I've just felt very called to do. I feel like it enables me to still do what I love, which is work with children, and children, especially children who oftentimes are the kiddos that aren't really thought about, that aren't necessarily put at the forefront of things. Lets me really work closely with their families and with them, but I get to work with even more than just those families that were in my class each year. So I did almost 20 years in the classroom as a classroom teacher, almost right at 20 years doing that. In the past 6 years or so, I've been doing this full time. And so, yeah, it's just been a nice bridge and kind of meeting in the middle of everything that I love and getting to do it all.
Again, like the guy that doesn't have a direct connection to special needs, just knowing that you could do that like in-home visit to meet and greet and then, assess is really cool advice. I could imagine like Lori, Briley, Camden would have been how, infant basically going to the school and then trying to do that there and like taking people out of their comfort zones. Just really neat to hear that like you guys go to their home. So I'm just curious if that's a thing still happening.
Yeah, it's still a thing. It's part of our county's preschool program. So as children are assigned in any of the preschool classrooms, their teachers are going to go out to meet them and do a home visit. You do a couple a year. We incorporate, observations in the home for children that might be getting evaluated. So there's a lot of that, just focusing on being a team and helping meet families too, because sometimes it's a little uncomfortable to come in a strange place with strange people and talk about really sensitive information and everything, so it's kind of nice to be able to go, But we're respectful too, because not everyone wants you to come to their house. And that's cool too. But
Yeah. Not everyone wants you to come to their house. Not everyone wants to give you a hug on the way in or out. Yeah.
yeah. Yes. Not everyone wants to give you a hug.
Sounds like it's time for a little tangent before we dance. Ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Smith is not known for embracing in hugs. She's a very good at the whole, hello, how are you? Nice to meet you from afar. But I will tell you, once she gets to know you, and there are opportunities for hugs, but it takes decades.
We'll hug.
Anyway.
Yes, I'm just not that natural. Everyone knows the huggers. Like, they're just huggers. And I'm not just a hugger. And I'm real good at deflecting a hug real quick too, or just letting you know that, oh, hey, I'm not a hugger, So I'm a hugger with children. I will hug children. I will hug people. I will hug.
So for everybody that's listening, the next time you see Michelle, your task is to step off from a side and watch her try to deflect. Like, I'm gonna do that. And the next time I'm near you, I'm just gonna take 5 minutes and watch you, and you see how well you do with the deflection.
I have learned in my old age and growth with this, though. I'm becoming. Sometimes I'll just go in because I know people want to hug. So depending on where I am, I just go ahead and do it, and it really throws people off because they know I'm not a hugger. So that's been kind of fun lately.
That is funny you say that, because I've known for years that you're not a hugger, and sometime in the past 4 years, you have just gone in for a hug because I am a hugger, and now I know why. Now I know. So you were not doing that because you grew. You were doing that for me. Well, thanks, nice.
Okay,
Thank you.
There you go.
But before we dance, I gotta say, I enjoyed listening to all of that because there were pieces in it that I didn't know and pieces that filled in some blanks. But what I do want to say is, like, congratulations and thank you. Like, this whole idea of you can't be it unless you can see it. Like, that's what you described. You had a teacher, and that teacher showed you the way, and you wanted to follow that mentor's efforts. And you said, I want to be, that little girl that wants to be a teacher. And nowadays, I think we're seeing a lot more opportunities where young girls are able to see big opportunities ahead of them because women are dare I say, being treated as equals. I don't want to go so far as to say that, because there's a lot of women that would say baloney, what about this and this, but it is making some progress than where maybe it was years ago. And so I'm appreciative for not only the track that you've picked and your adjustments along the way and becoming a special educator, and then because we wouldn't have met you otherwise. So it's time for Miller time, because this is the time of the show where we just want to celebrate with whatever beverage you have. Michelle, it could be water, it could be lemonade, and if you don't have anything,
I did not bring my cup with me. It's at my desk. Oh well.
Anyway, Miller time is that part of the show where we invite everybody to join us with your favorite beverage. And if you're tube fed, we ask you to reach out to your caregiver with that special look or noise or action that you do to say, hey, look, it's Miller time for me too. I want to be included in this. So, all right, so take us back as we dance. This is the part of the show where we're going to tell some stories. I don't know, Michelle, there's so many stories you have. I could cue one up and try to get you to go with it, but like the one that stands out in my mind might be one of the first times that I know I entered your classroom. I know Camden was there and Lori was there, but like take us back to some of your early meetings and your impressions.
Well, let's see. I remember the first time Ainsley got to come into the classroom. So we always go to the house, but then I remember that very first time where she got to come into the classroom because Briley was with her because Briley was sick. I remember Briley was sick. I remember what Briley was wearing. I have a really crazy memory for certain random things, but then can't remember like dates of things. But I remember like Briley had on her it was like a little brown jumpsuit, and Lori will remember. It's a little brown velour little jumpsuit, and she wasn't feeling well because Lori said, but don't worry, she's not contagious. I can't send her to school. So she was worried about bringing her in the class. But Ainsley got to come into the classroom, meet the classroom, and see everything and do some paperwork. But I remember that because I think we had a little picture of them sitting side by side at a table. I remember the early days of Ainsley being in class because Lori was staying with her. Like that was something that just Lori had talked to me about. She knew it would be good for Ainsley to get to go to preschool and do all those things, but she just couldn't quite bear to drop her off. And so normally that's not something that's really done because there's just lots of other factors with that if you had families just staying all day. But I've always worked with really great staff, and given just situational things and pieces of that, it was fine. Everyone was like, this is fine. And Camden came along for the ride, which was actually really fun too, because he was young and small and fit great into a little preschool classroom. So it was really cool to have those experiences and just to have everybody, because Lori it wasn't like she stayed right by Ainsley's side. She became like another set of hands in the classroom, and so it was really cool. It was really fun. I remember Ainsley's like favorite song. We'd always do circle time, and the kids would, like, if they couldn't say the name of the song they wanted to sing, they could like touch pictures that represented a song. So Ainsley always picked the same little song, little duck song. So she always picked that little song every day, and every day we listened to it, and every day she smiled really big every time it came on. I remember the first time that you came, I think that we met you, because I hadn't met you before and had just heard stories, because I thought you had on ECU Crocs. Because again, I'm from Eastern North Carolina, and I went to ECU, which is purple and yellow. And that's was like, Crocs are cool now, but Crocs weren't necessarily really popular before, back then, in 2007, I guess. So I remember you coming in, and I immediately thought, well, look at his shoes, in my head. I didn't say that out loud, but I thought, well, that's cool. He must have gone to ECU. But then I think I asked you too, and you were like, no, LSU. And I hate to admit it too, for all the Louisiana people that are going to listen to this, but I didn't know what LSU stood for. Like, LSU, I don't know. But I have since learned that, so don't worry. But that's one of my best, so I do remember that.
I
gotta keep rambling. So.
I'm going to say my Rooster Croc story, then I have a legitimate question. I remember, and I love Crocs. I mean, like,
I do. Well, I have a pair myself now.
Like, I love those things. But I remember one day he came walking down. It was probably 100 yards sidewalk, and I see him, and I'm just like, what is he wearing? Like, because I could just see, yellow and purple from afar, and yeah, here he comes with his backpack and just yellow and purple Crocs, and I was like, I like my Crocs too, but like I'm not wearing them into work. And it's not like he was in camis or a uniform, but that he was in, whatever his civilian like clothing. But he was like, he probably thought like, this is a good outfit. My purple Crocs. I never forget that. But my serious question is, and I could try to do the math, but we don't do math in public. When you first met Ainsley, and I guess either of you can answer this, was the INAD diagnosis already, or was that still trying to be figured out?
No, it's a good question. We did not get the diagnosis until after 4 years. So like I was underway on the ship in 2007, March, when we got the diagnosis. And so Michelle would remember when we got the diagnosis, because that would be something that probably Lori told her within days of that.
Yeah, I do. And I remember when at that home visit and in those first meetings, Lori had said they're still trying to figure things out. This is what they're thinking it could be. It might be this, but we have to do this biopsy, and we have to wait for this. We have to wait for that. So I remember her sharing that, because I had not heard of that before. So I started, research, okay, what is this? And that kind of thing. And then it was around that springtime, because I think you had just come home, hence that being like the first time you come in by the classroom, because she had been in class. At the end of the day, Ainsley was I was only her teacher for like one full calendar year, technically, from like January to December of 2007. I remember when Lori had shared they got that info and they confirmed everything. We did like summer school at the house that summer. And then you guys moved that December. Because I remember we did like a /birthday going away party for Ainsley. So.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And we actually reviewed some of that home video, and you're on it. Like it was crazy when we were preparing the A6 video. We went through hours and hours and hours of home video, and that going away thing that was in December of 2007, which was right after our Make-A-Wish trip to Disney and give kids the world. Yeah. Yeah, really, really awesome perspective, though. The fact that she was only in your classroom from December to December, like
Yeah.
but it seems like a lifetime. And I mean, technically it was 25% of her life at that point. She was 4. But yeah, no. And we could talk about the Crocs, but I don't think we need to at all.
The best is when like the Crocs were accompanied by a rooster suit.
That picture, there's a picture of that around here somewhere, man. I wish I could find it. Maybe it'll have to be on the Instagram. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, the Together We Shall podcast has an Instagram page. And in episode 13, we talked about that. We talked about how we needed to have our like count over 147 because, Michelle, as you can attest, back in episode 5, there was a challenge. So what's the latest, Joe? I see you over there typing. You have a like count on the Together We Shall podcast?
I do.
And the number is?
Does anyone want to take a guess?
I mean, I know we exceeded it because I saw it when it happened, but I haven't looked in a couple of days. So I'd like to say 155 because that's a cool number.
Yeah. If you didn't say 155, it would be silly. 151.
So
150.
there you go. So Lauren, actually, no. Lauren's running the Marine Corps Marathon. That's all I know. Lauren's running it. Okay. And maybe Michelle can fill in for Lauren. What do you think, Michelle? You want to run the Marine Marathon in October? Look at your face.
Jeez. Yeah.
Oh, yeah? She said, yeah.
I know. I can't answer that.
I drove by the building.
I am going to be running the Marine Corps half marathon in September. So I know that.
Oh, wow.
I could do the Marine Corps marathon. I don't know.
Joe, don't miss this opportunity to tell people about the Marine Corps Marathon charity team.
If you want to be a part of the Marine Corps Marathon with Ainsley's Angels, email joe@ainsleysangels.org. We can make that happen. Training actually starts, I think it's next week for the typical 18-week or whatever training plan. So still got some time. joe@ainsleysangels.org. Would love to see you in October in our nation's capital.
Perfect, Joe. Well done. So this is a good time to bring us back to Michelle because she has run the Marine Marathon, but years before she ran the Marine Marathon, she actually ran a half marathon in Virginia Beach, the rock and roll half. And what's cool about that is I don't know if she really realized it was going to be a full 13.1 miles or what. Take me back, Michelle. Take me back.
I was saying I'd use that term loosely, run. I don't know that I ran that half marathon at all. So after once your family moved to Virginia, I stayed in touch with Lori. I stayed in touch with all my kids' families and things like that. So Lori would send me pictures, and Ainsley started participating in races. So she would send me pictures, and it just looked really cool, really fun. We didn't have anything like that around here. And then I had some friends that run, and so I did like a 5K race with them. And then she was sharing about Ainsley was going to be getting ready to do that half marathon later that year. So I ran my little 5K for the first time in like May of the year Ainsley did that half marathon in Virginia Beach. And so then there were the little emails out going, hey, anyone wants to come join? Come, it'll be fun. It'll be all that. Well, me and Miss Katie, who was one of my coworkers, thought it would be really cool to go up there and see everybody. I mean, that would be awesome. It'd be really fun. And yeah, and how cool would this be? I thought it might be like a relay. I really didn't. Because again, I'm not a runner. Like, I hadn't run. Like, that just wasn't anything I ever did. I just was never a runner. It looked really fun. It looked really great. I just wanted to kind of do that. So yeah, so I was like, sure.
I'm just trying to laugh.
Yeah, so we did that. So we got up there and yeah. But I did it. I didn't know it was going to be like 13 miles that you had to do all at one time.
I feel like every one of your like races started that way, like at the time, whether it was the rock and roll half or a Ragnar or full Marine Corps marathon or being a race director for a race series race. Yes. I didn't realize all of this. I didn't
think I was have to do all this stuff, but it looks great.
That's right. It looks great. It's going to be fun. Yeah. So just for all our listeners,
great idea.
That really is. I think that actually is the beginning of every single thing that I've done with it. If I think about start, you're like, here, let's form this in Jacksonville. That'll be fun. I know people. Yeah, that'd be real fun. I know a lot of people that like that. Yeah, I think that has been my statement every time.
But if you think with that, I mean, you are one of the 4 longest tenured leaders of Ainsley's Angels, right? I mean, between you, Rooster, Christine, and Terry, like that's started. It's the second longest ambassador, and still kicking.
Gratitude all the way around. Like that would have been our Miller time if we didn't have one already. But to the tune of like, put that into perspective, like you, Michelle, came up here to run that half, and that was in 2010.
Okay.
And then the following year was Ainsley's first Marine Corps marathon, which, by the way, she didn't relay that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you email Joe at ainsleyangels.org, you're not signing up for a relay. But then
Relay.
yeah. So Michelle came back every year, though. She loved it so much. She'd come back for every rock and roll every year. And then eventually we made our way up to Dick and Rick Hoyt's house in 2012, May. We met a lot of new folks. And one of the people that we met there, name was Ron Robb. And he told us about My Team Triumph and the parallels that it had to Ainsley's Angels of America. And we ended up partnering that May to bring essentially My Team Triumph, Ainsley's Angels of Eastern Carolina, to become a thing, Michelle. And 10 years later, like you're about to do in September, the Marine Corps half at Camp Lejeune is your 10-year anniversary. Can you believe that?
I really can't. I mean, I really can't. I have a hard time like stepping back and really just looking at that because I'm so in it, so when you're in something, you just don't tend to see all that surrounds it. But no, I can't, because again, even that summer was like, oh, cool. See, yeah, we can bring this thing and we can do this. And I know families, because we've been trying, because I don't know if you remember too, there was a group called Stronger Together. So I had got connected to a runner that lived in Wilmington, where Joe is now, who was trying to bring this concept to that area. And he knew runners, but didn't have a connection to families. And so it was like that year before, so 2011. So I was connecting him with families, and we saw through that year that it's kind of tricky to pack up your loved one and drive an hour away for an early morning race. And so it was cool. We made great connections, great things, learned a lot. But we really learned that, if we were going to do it in Jacksonville, and we had to do it in Jacksonville, if we were going to involve them. And then back then it was real much, this will be real fun. We'll gather together once a week, or once a month and do a little race. And, this will be cool. This will be really fun. I know people around here that love this. And that's kind of what it started out as. And then when I sit and look back at just the evolution of everything, yeah, it's really mind-blowing. Like, it is just very surreal.
And how many of your families from your time as a special educator have found their way into enjoying this extracurricular experience?
It's a lot. It's a lot. Little ones that I knew when they just turned 3 are now like in their 20s, and they, are part of our group now. So, and we've only been around 10 years now, though, but it's again, just that reconnection and being able to go back out once we formed Ainsley's Angels and talking to families, and getting them involved. So yeah, so there are many. I mean, I can't even guess the number of our riders that are here in Jacksonville that once potentially were students, or if they weren't my own, they were students that I knew, that kind of thing.
I still can't, just the 10 years, right? I mean, to me, it's like the scene from Grosse Point Blank. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but, Jeremy Piven, 10 years. And he freaks out, meeting Cusack again at their high school reunion. He's like, it's been 10 years. Because, all the time when, Rooster and I, or, Michelle, we have our leaders talks and all that, everything that we're doing within the organization is for the next 10 years. So now it's 10 years from now will be 20. Thinking back 10 years, how far the organization has come in 10 years, and how much we've seen riders mature, and as Tim Davis says, blossom, right? And same with runners, certain runners, some people become huggers over the years. Like, it's just crazy to think that it's only been 10 years. 10 years is a long time, but it went really quick. It's just, kind of a testament to how exciting and bright the future of inclusion, across communities is over the next 10, 20, 30 X years.
Yeah, like if people had asked now, and people will, would you have imagined that when this started in 2012, this would have been it? No, no way. No way. No way. Every time, even in the beginning, when, the Ainsley's Angels logo started getting put on things, that was so strange. It's like, oh my gosh, here we are wearing shirts and then the trailers. And now people know what's really been cool. We're in a military town. So when our families get deployed, or what is it? This is bad. I'm a military kid. I don't know all the terminology. Was it PCS, right? You get PCS out. And then it was just so cool to have our families know, oh, hey, Michelle, there's this group here. So they still get to go and do that. And to see the impact and the trickle-down effect, and to see the meaning Ainsley's Angels has for so many families, and for our runners. I mean, it was the whole point. It was the whole reason we did this. So it's to bring that to our community. And it's just really cool to see. I don't have profound words for it, but it's really cool to step back and see what a staple this has become in our community. And we're just one community of so many, and so it's really cool to see that from the start, where it was just Southwest Louisiana and Eastern. Let's do this. We'll do it here, where we're from. We'll do it here, where Ainsley was born. And then to look 10 years later, I'm like, dude, that's crazy.
You're not going to get away with that, because you just now used your little special Michelle voice, and you just quoted me. You were like, here where Ainsley's from, and here where Ainsley's people are. Like, and you did it in a way where you were trying to make it sound like it was like a good idea, like Ashton said.
It's a great idea. Great idea.
It's so fun.
So just to shape this up, Michelle started Ainsley's Angels in Eastern Carolina because Rooster said this would be a good idea. No,
I think your words were, if we ever moved back to Jacksonville, this would definitely be the type of organization activity we would want to make sure could be there. It was something like, and I thought, well, it would be pretty cool. Well, there's nothing here in Jacksonville for all my kids' families. Like, I can sign my kid up for all kinds of different extracurricular things, and there's not a lot. This will be cool. This will be fun. And here we are.
It just hit me after looking at a clock, or I don't know, 14 years. I should know this, right? 14 years of, call it friendship, right? Rooster is that like meme from Toy Story with Buzz and Woody, where Buzz is like, you see that? It's something everywhere. It's like, you see that? Whatever it is, Crocs everywhere, inclusion everywhere. And he gets people, whether it's over a Miller Lite in a garage and a whiteboard, or a Miller Lite and you were probably drinking a Coors Light, or whatever it was, like, yes, inclusion in Lake Charles and now in Jacksonville. That's it. He's Buzz Lightyear. And there's all those memes.
It's called vision, brother. It's just vision. I just knew in 2006 that one day Crocs would be cool. So I was going to wear my Crocs, and I was going to do it proudly. And look, now it's a publicly traded company and available at every outlet mall. How about that?
I was telling Leanne the other day, it's going to sound crazy, and no one's going to believe me. I honestly think that I've had these Crocs since 2007. But it's because it's that EVP, you can't break them. Why would I get new ones?
I had no idea when Michelle Smith was going to be on our podcast that we would spend 5 of the minutes talking about Crocs.
Tangents.
Wow. Tangents. Finally, some tangents. This is fabulous. I got to come back to the thoroughfare, because there's 2016. I don't want to necessarily go too far down this particular memory, but it'd be remiss if I didn't just point out that, like, the year prior, 2015, you brought the Ainsley's Angels race series to Eastern Carolina. And before we knew it, Michelle, you had like 30, 40, 50 plus riders that are downtown Jacksonville, this rolling through the streets, and you're the race director because it's going to be fun. And then the following year, 2016, Ainsley literally passed away within like 10 days of the second annual Run With Your Heart. And I remember it so vividly because what a whirlwind of emotion. The day before Ainsley passed away, Kaylee passed away on 22 February. And we hadn't dealt with a lot of end of life situations in Ainsley's Angels at that point. We've had a couple of them across the country. Of course, today we've had, unfortunately, hundreds of them. But it was really early in the relationship. And I remember, like, we knew Kaylee's family because she was one of your young ladies, too.
Kaylee and Ainsley were in class together for a short time. I think it was shortly before you guys moved, Kaylee had just started. So they just crossed paths briefly, but for a good little while. I had been hounding her mom for a long time to bring her out because Ainsley, we'd already formed Ainsley's Angels there in 2012. So I had been, hey, we're doing this. Bring her out, bring her out. They didn't like to get up early in the morning. So, but they finally did. 2015, they came for their first races and were at every single one. And she just loved it. And yeah, and so, and Kaylee passed very unexpectedly that next day. And I think I had shot y'all a message just to let you know, because I knew you guys had asked a lot about her. And then we got word the next day about Ainsley. So
Yeah, just wild, and that had to have just kicked you in the face. But you know, you persevered with such strength and honored them at the Run With Your Heart. Some week to 10 days later, I mean, I still have it. It hangs in my garage. It's in beautiful memory of. It's got these really big, beautiful, smiling pictures of both of them. I see it every time I go out there, and her parents continue to come. Her loved ones and caregivers, they continue to come to Run With Your Heart every year, almost like a bit of a celebration. So, yeah, thanks for keeping Run With Your Heart going, and you know, I don't know. Thank you for so many things, but I wanted to point that out in this episode because it just it's so fabulous. But it was later that year, though, that like Kevin had an event while he was running. So 2016 was a heck of a year on Michelle Smith.
yeah, it was. Yeah, it was not good. Kevin, we had that Marine Corps half marathon. It's always our anniversary race, and so he was out there and had a heat stroke while pushing a rider, and it was a scary time for everybody kind of there. I was oblivious to it all, which is probably good in the end because I was out running myself with somebody and was well behind them. So by the time I finished, because again, I don't run. So by the time I finished that race, things had already went down. He was already at a hospital. People very quickly let me know what kind of got there. And he was already kind of on the better end of things. But yeah, it was just a tough time because, you know, there was already a lot going on. And again, it was just a year that just continued to remind everybody how fragile things are, you know, and for as horrible of a year as it was, you know, there were some positive lessons learned, like the Run With Your Heart race. Because honestly, that race, I wasn't going to go to it. I just couldn't go to it. And I know for Ainsley, you know, we lost both Kaylee, we lost Ainsley, and unfortunately, you know, the 2-3 years prior, I had lost students each year. You know, so it was just kind of just, it gets to a point, you know, where it's just like enough's enough. You know, this is just a little much to kind of have to keep going through. And so when that happened, I just wasn't even, I was kind of like, I'm just not even going to go. I can't go. But I'm glad I did, you know, because again, it was a beautiful event and we really got to do a lot of things to honor not only the girls, but everybody out there at that race. And then the same thing with Kevin and everything. By the time that happened in September, there were plans for everybody to go and run the Marine Corps Marathon and do all of that in October. So it was like, yeah, never mind, you know, what are we doing? You know, I'm not going to, let's put a pause on this, you know, so there's always these pieces. Let's just put a pause on this. But at the end of the day, I'm glad we never did, you know, it's kind of just need some time to step back, recollect, and then kind of keep going on.
So I remember the like hearing about Kaylee and then obviously Ainsley that week, and then like Rooster and I and Christine and Terry Leanne went to the local 5K in Hampton Roads that Saturday, and then that turned right into the discussions of, all right, are you going to go to Run With Your Heart now? Like, am I going by myself? Like, what's going to go? How is this going to work? And there was conversations, you know, within the Rossiter family about that. And I remember that one because Rooster, Terry, and I went down, right? That was the one that was just the three of us. And yeah, the emotion of the banners. Yeah, I can picture it on at the race. I can picture it in the wall in Rooster's garage. Yeah, that was very special. But it's going back to like Kevin. That was crazy because Rooster and I were at Ragnar, and knock on wood, like I felt like I was not too far away from being in the same boat as Kevin from my last leg, and then getting done with Ragnar and hearing everything that happened with Kevin, it's crazy. And then you talk about skipping Marine Corps Marathon, but now not his first return since then, but Kevin's coming back to Marine Corps this year, which is exciting. Kevin's like probably the only guy that like has this, tragic, incident, and as he's getting older, is getting faster. I remember running hurt this way. He was like, "What you gonna run, Bo?" I'm like, "Slow. That's what I'm gonna run." Getting old and my knees hurt. And he's like, "All right, Bo, I'm gonna go sub-7." I was like,
It's funny because Kevin wasn't a runner either. Kevin only started running after we started Eastern Carolina because I had broken my knee right before we debuted Eastern Carolina. There's a whole other story. But he felt bad because I wasn't going to be able to run and stuff. So he's like, well, do you want me to come out and at least like run and do this thing with you guys then since you can't do it? So that's how he started.
How much do you think that Paige's career, because Paige was a runner in high school up to a point, is tied to her watching her parents run and all that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she's been in it like from the start. We drug her to every last little thing, and she's always loved to run, and so she's been at the races and she's paired up, she's pushed her friends. We've got a neighbor that she's grown up with that she teams up with, and some other people, and it's just kind of become a thing. It's just a thing we do,
You've had a ton of like roles and throughout this whole journey, but one thing that kind of stands out is you always seem to find yourself kind of behind the scenes. And so it's not lost on me that you joined us for the past, hour to have this conversation. I just want to say thank you again for overcoming any public speaking anxieties or being in the spotlight, the Michelle episode, because I think you have a lot of things to offer. And I think that there's a lot of folks that can really benefit from getting to know you and to seeing, the journey that you've had. So thank you.
I think that's one of the reasons Michelle and I get along. Want to do our job, have fun, and enjoy our Miller time. And I think that's part of the reason Michelle and I.
Yep.
One of the many reasons we get along.
Yeah, I like my back seat. It's a good view just to kind of be in the back, hiding out, help tie some stuff together.
And here we are, podcast everywhere.
And now we're on a podcast. So see, it was going to be real fun to just do these little races and all, and now we're on a podcast.
Talking about our feelings and things.
Talking about things, yes.
They told me people don't tell people to hug me.
I know. At least I don't have to hug anybody today.
The seat that you have in the back seat, looking through that rearview mirror back, 10 years of memories. We touched on some of those today. I appreciate the journey and the chance to kind of dance and look back through the past few years. There's so many other things that come to mind. We're wrapping up that point where we're running out of time, and usually we transition now into a more of a lighthearted kind of conversation. But I think we already had that. It was interwoven throughout, Crocs and things. So I don't know.
Crocs and things. If we ever start a bar, that's got to be at Crocs and things. Cocktails and dreams, Crocs and things. Done.
There you go. Write it down. Put it on your paper towel.
Yes.
Ooh, podcast reference. Well done.
Yes. Somebody's listening to podcasts. That's good, Michelle. Very good. As we kind of get towards the end here, what kind of things do you have next on your horizon?
Yeah, so we will be at the Marine Corps Half Marathon in Camp Lejeune on September 10th for Eastern Carolina's 10-year anniversary celebration. I'm working with the race staff. So we are sending out an open invitation, though, to any rider that would like to join us, regardless of whether you're here in Eastern North Carolina or not. We've already got people kind of confirming their attendance. We would love to have runners join us. It's an amazing event. We are heavily supported there. Everyone is very excited to help us celebrate that 10-year anniversary. 10 years ago, no one had ever seen what this was, and they thought we were just going to be moms and dads out pushing our babies in strollers. And so it's been awesome to see that shift. So we would love for anybody to come out and join us September 10th, Marine Corps Half Marathon. You can email me at michelle@ainsleyangels.org with questions, because I've kind of got codes and some other info for you. So if you're listening to this and you want to join that way, you can do that. We'll be throwing a really big party that night. Details are still in the works for that, but again, just a fun time to celebrate. We're all definitely ready to do that.
And we're not only a charity partner with this, but we're actually a sponsor of the race, which I don't think, Joe, that Ainsley's Angels has ever sponsored a race except this one. And there's a reason for it. There's so much reason for it, but it's a great marriage and partnership. And I have intentions of being there. I'm deconflicting September. There's a lot of moving targets, but I want to be there. And Joe, I don't want to put you on the spot, but are you?
I have some deconflicting to do as well. I will look like this that weekend. So I'm going to register here when we wrap this up. It's my intention to at least run because I will look like this. I don't know what other tasks and things I'll have to do, but it's really neat. I didn't know. I knew about us sponsoring, obviously, right? Because I'm part of the dispersing of the funds or whatever you would call it. But on the website, it says sponsored by USAA, Jacksonville Tourism Development Authority. That's a handful. Ainsley's Angels.
Ainsley. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm pointing to it like you guys.
Yeah, you also keep saying I'm going to look like this, and it's a podcast. Nobody can see you, but I did allude to the fact that. Yeah.
I know it's a podcast and nobody can see me, but I continue to say, like, let's only do that. But you keep saying, no, putting it on YouTube. So I don't have facial hair today because of what I had to do the last 5 days. But got like 40 days to grow it back. So, again.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be full. Dang, it might look better than old boy on that show. The one that takes place in Boston, Million Little Things. What's that old boy's name? He got a kick.
Gary. Gary's got a good bear. Good beer.
Gary.
Beard.
Gary on Middle Little.
I don't know where we're at. We might not be on the same. Just no more talking about the show.
Oh, that's right. Because you and I might be at different spots. Okay.
We could talk about This Is Us, but we can't talk about Million Little Things.
I did finish This Is Us. I did finish Ozark. I can tell you who's dead and who's not dead.
You can't, though. It's a whole article about it, and even Bateman chimed in. Something happens at the end. Jonah has a gun. There's a trigger pull, and then it's black. It's up for the imagination.
Yeah. Anyway, so closing it out, Michelle, what do you want to leave the listeners with, and or what is your weekly word for the week ahead? You can pick either one or both.
I'll do just a weekly word of gratitude. We've been talking about looking back and thinking back towards everything, and it's been a long ride over the past 10 years and even longer, and so many ups and downs, but just at the end of the day, just being able to look back and just have such gratitude for everybody along the way that I got to work side by side with, because I'm haven't done any of these things I'm involved with because I do them by myself, and so I'm just really appreciative of everybody that I've gotten to cross paths with. I've learned from everybody, and I just have a lot of gratitude for that, and looking forward to the next 10. So we'll see what happens.
Joe, what is up? Weekly word or something?
I'm stealing potentially something from the previous episode with Darlene and flexibility. And I'm not saying neuro flexibility as she taught us, but just flexibility. Again, I've alluded to it. I've had a little hectic 5 days, and just reminding myself and those that I was with to be flexible, both physically and mentally, will help you get through life. The effect which you can affect concept, because there's some things that are out of our control. But if you can remain flexible physically and mentally and ride the wave, you'll get there. You will not stay neutral.
You know what? I got enough.
He's in charge.
We're done. This was good.
Yeah, we're done here. The structure of this building has reached its capacity.
Find your people, and if they make you feel sexy, even better.